The 7 women Clint Eastwood wanted most. That steely gaze, the weathered squint, the quiet commanding presence that could fill a room without saying a word. For more than 6 decades, Clint Eastwood has defined American masculinity on the silver screen. From the nameless gunslinger of Sergio Leone's westerns to tough-as-nails Dirty Harry, right through to his acclaimed work behind the camera as a director, Eastwood's legacy is one of power, mystery, and restraint. But behind that iconic scowl and beneath the legendary poncho lies something else entirely. A man with desires, attractions, and romantic pursuits that have fascinated Hollywood insiders for generations. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on one of cinema's most private legends to explore the women who captured the imagination of the man who captured America. These aren't merely Hollywood beauties, but rather emblems of the epitome in feminine appeal across eras, cultures, and cinematic traditions. From European art house goddesses to all-American bombshells, these 7 women reflect the diverse tastes of a man whose appeal has transcended generations. What draws one icon to another? Is it shared artistry, physical attraction, the magnetic pull of 2 powerful personalities, or perhaps that ineffable star quality? Something that can't be manufactured or faked, but is instantly recognizable when it enters a room? In this special presentation, we're counting down the 7 women who made Clint Eastwood's pulse quicken throughout his legendary career. From confirmed flirtations to rumored affairs, from professional admiration to distant worship, these stories paint a fascinating picture of Hollywood's most stoic star and the women who managed to crack that famous reserve. So holster your 6-shooters and settle in as we explore the feminine mystique that captured the heart of the man with no name. And believe me, number 1 on this list might just be the most surprising revelation about Clint you've ever heard. 7. Marilyn Monroe, the unattainable dream. Before he became the man with no name, before the world knew who Clint Eastwood was, there was already a platinum blonde phenomenon captivating global audiences and redefining American sexuality. Marilyn Monroe, the ultimate symbol of feminine allure, vulnerability, and star power, had already conquered Hollywood by the time a young, struggling Eastwood was taking bit parts and trying to get noticed. Marilyn was the kind of woman men never get over. Clint reportedly admitted decades later during a rare, candid interview about the golden era of Hollywood. Not just because of how she looked, though that was certainly part of it, but because there was something both powerful and fragile about her at the same time. That combination is, well, it's magnetic. The timing of their careers created a poignant what-if that has tantalized film buffs for generations. When Monroe was ascending to the height of her fame in the early 1950s, Eastwood was merely a contract player at Universal, taking small roles in such forgettable fare as Revenge of the Creature and Tarantula. They dwelled in different universes within the same industry. She, the brightest star in the firmament. He, a distant planet, still finding his orbit. He was so smitten with Monroe, according to Hollywood lore that has endured for decades, that he pulled off the extraordinarily audacious move of writing directly to her studio, asking, perhaps begging, to be cast in anything with her. If the letter was written, it was apparently never answered. The studio system was inflexible in those days, and the idea of pairing an unknown with their most valuable asset was unimaginable. I never met her officially, Clint once acknowledged to a film historian chronicling the era. His expression, normally so guarded, reportedly softened as he added, "Sometimes I wonder if that's for the best. Some legends should maybe stay legends." What's particularly poignant about this unrequited appreciation is how their respective careers went in different directions. As Monroe's life spiraled toward its tragic conclusion in 1962, Eastwood's star was just beginning its meteoric rise with a fistful of dollars in 1964. They existed on opposite sides of a pivotal moment in Hollywood history. She, the last great star of the studio system. He, among the first of a new breed of actors who would define the more independent, edgier cinema of the late 1960s and beyond. Film historians have often mused on what a Monroe-Eastwood pairing might have looked like on screen. Her luminous vulnerability playing against his stoic reserve could create fascinating chemistry. A Western, perhaps, with Monroe as the saloon girl who melts the heart of Eastwood's hardened gunslinger, or a noir thriller with her as the femme fatale to his detective. The possibilities remain tantalizing cinematic might-have-beens. For Clint, Monroe represented not just a beautiful woman, but a symbol of an era in Hollywood which was fading just as his own career was taking flight. His admiration for her speaks to something deeper than mere physical attraction, a recognition of her unique place in film history and the price she paid for her fame. 6. Sophia Loren, Mediterranean Magnificence. If there's one woman who could match Clint Eastwood's screen presence inch for inch, curve for curve, and intensity for intensity, it's the incomparable Sophia Loren. The Italian bombshell who rose from poverty to international superstardom brought a sophisticated European sensuality that was worlds apart from the American pin-up aesthetic of the 1950s and 60s. According to Hollywood insiders, she also brought Clint Eastwood to his knees, figuratively speaking, of course. The most naturally seductive woman alive. That's what Eastwood reportedly called Loren during a private conversation with director Sergio Leone while filming The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. This wasn't just idle praise. Rather, it was the culmination of an attraction that had allegedly begun years earlier during a fateful encounter at the Cannes Film Festival. It was the mid-1960s, and both stars were ascending to international fame. Loren, already an Oscar winner for Two Women, Eastwood emerging as a global phenomenon thanks to Leone's spaghetti westerns. The French Riviera provided the perfect backdrop for a meeting of two icons whose appeal transcended borders and languages. According to film industry veterans who were there, Clint made his interest known to Sophia in that sophisticated, indirect manner of the era. A private dinner was arranged, champagne was poured, and the conversation flowed as easily as the Mediterranean breeze through the open windows of a hotel restaurant. What transpired next has become the stuff of Hollywood legend. Some claim Loren politely rebuffed Eastwood's advances, informing him that her heart belonged exclusively to producer Carlo Ponti, whom she would eventually marry in a union that lasted until his death in 2007. Others insist the chemistry between the two stars proved too potent to resist, culminating in a brief but torrid affair that both parties mutually agreed to keep under wraps. The truth only Clint and Sophia know for sure, and neither has ever spoken to it directly in interviews. That very silence has only fed decades of speculation and cemented this potential pairing as one of Hollywood's most intriguing might-have-beens. What makes the Eastwood-Loren connection so fascinating isn't just their obvious physical attractiveness, but the similar trajectories of their careers. Both transcended their sex symbol status to become respected actors and, eventually, formidable forces behind the camera as well. Both brought an authenticity and grit to their performances that separated them from their more manufactured peers, and both carried themselves with a dignity that elevated them from mere celebrities to cultural icons. There's something about European actresses of that era, Clint once said when discussing international cinema. They didn't try to hide their strength behind some artificial sweetness. They owned their power, their sensuality, their intelligence. That honesty is compelling. Though their professional paths would cross occasionally at international film festivals and Hollywood events over the decades that followed, Eastwood and Loren never starred together in a film. Another entry in cinema's great book of missed opportunities. One can only imagine the smoldering intensity they might have generated on screen, his laconic masculinity playing against her passionate expressiveness. Instead, their connection remains in the realm of whispered maybes and might-have-beens. A brief moment when two of cinema's most powerful forces were drawn into each other's orbit before continuing on to their separate legendary paths. But while Sophia Loren represented European sophistication and artistic credibility, the next woman embodied something far more untamed. 5. Brigitte Bardot, the French fantasy. She's the reason every American man grew a mustache. This tongue-in-cheek quip, attributed to Clint Eastwood during a 1970s interview, barely scratches the surface of his apparent fascination with French bombshell Brigitte Bardot. The blonde phenomenon who scandalized and revolutionized European cinema represented something entirely new in the cultural landscape, a liberated, unapologetic sexuality that broke with conventional morality and established Bardot as the ultimate symbol of the sexual revolution. To Eastwood, whose own career was built on redefining traditional masculinity, Bardot's fearlessness regarding her image and her art clearly struck a chord. He and she were changing cultural expectations just from opposite sides of the fence. He was deconstructing the heroic male archetype. She, shattering feminine stereotypes of propriety and restraint. Per French tabloids of the era, this mutually cultural rebellion may have manifested in a secret rendezvous in Paris sometime in the late 1960s. The supposed meeting has become the stuff of film legend. Two icons representing American and European cinema respectively, coming together in the City of Light at the height of their powers and appeal. There was a suite at the Ritz, claimed one longtime Parisian paparazzo in his memoir. Very private, very discreet. They arrived separately, left separately, but for 48 hours the two most desired people in cinema shared that space. The hotel staff was sworn to secrecy. No photographic evidence of this encounter ever emerged, and both stars' representatives have consistently denied the story over the years. But the rumor persists, in part because the pairing seems so perfect in its contrasts. Her expressive emotionality against his stoic reserve. Her European liberation against his American frontier ethic. What is documented, though, is that both stars expressed professional admiration for each other's work. Bardot reportedly praised Eastwood's Leon westerns for their visual style and minimalist acting approach, while Clint spoke favorably about Bardot's performances in films like Contempt and Viva Maria during discussions of European cinema. What Bardot did was brave, Eastwood reportedly told film critic Judith Crist during a conversation about international stars. She didn't just play sexual characters, she brought her whole self to those roles. Consequences be damned. That takes a kind of courage most actors never touch. Adding to the intrigue of the connection between them are the parallel trajectories of their careers. Both effectively retired from acting while still in their prime, Bardot abandoning film entirely in 1973 to focus on animal rights activism, Eastwood gradually transitioning to directing while taking increasingly selective acting roles. Both seem to recognize the limitations of being defined primarily by their physical appearance and sought more meaningful applications of their talents and fame. Whether they ever actually met in that Parisian hotel room or not, the Eastwood-Bardot connection represents a fascinating cultural intersection. Two icons who changed the rules of their respective cinematic traditions, possibly drawn together by mutual recognition of the other's boundary-breaking impact. If Bardot represented European liberation, though, the next woman on Eastwood's list embodied something uniquely American, a dangerous, hip-swaying sexuality that brought rock and roll energy to the silver screen. 4. Anne-Margret, the fiery temptation. Some attractions are based on opposites, while others come from recognizing a kindred spirit. When it comes to Clint Eastwood's reported fascination with Anne-Margret, it seems clear that what drew him to the Swedish-American bombshell was the sense that she was, in many ways, his female counterpart. Dangerous, untamed, and pulsing with an energy that couldn't be contained by conventional Hollywood roles, Anne-Margret embodied the wild, unpredictable passion that fascinated Clint. She was wild, red-headed, and oozed danger. Exactly Clint's type, revealed one longtime assistant director who worked with Eastwood during his rise to superstardom in the late 1960s. He was reportedly obsessed with her Viva Las Vegas era and even tried to get her cast in several of his westerns. Timing is everything. At the same time, as Anne-Margret was setting screens ablaze opposite Elvis Presley in 1964's Viva Las Vegas, Eastwood was redefining the Western antihero in Sergio Leone's groundbreaking films. Both were a new kind of screen presence, sexual, morally ambiguous, and crackling with an intensity that made their contemporaries seem tame by comparison. What is particularly fascinating about Eastwood's pursuit of Anne-Margret is how it reveals his understanding of what made his own films work. His westerns weren't merely about gunfights and revenge. They were about simmering tension, the kind that could explode without warning. Who better to create that tension than an actress whose performances always suggested a volcano of passion barely contained beneath the surface? Clint pushed hard to get her for High Plains Drifter, said a casting director of the era. He had this vision of her as the saloon woman with a past. The studio pushed back. They wanted someone more conventionally pretty, less dangerous. Eventually, Clint gave in, but he wasn't happy about it. Meanwhile, Anne-Margret was fighting her own battles with Hollywood's expectations. Having established herself as a sex symbol, she was desperate to prove her dramatic abilities, a goal that later earned her Oscar nominations for Carnal Knowledge and Tommy. Taking a role in one of Eastwood's westerns might have seemed like a step backward. Their career trajectories continued to orbit close to each other throughout the 1970s, without ever quite overlapping. Both were trying to push beyond their initial images, she proving herself an actress, he as a director. Both were also fighting their own personal demons. Her battle with alcohol, his complicated love life. There was mutual respect there, said one producer who knew them both. They recognized something in each other, the same intensity, the same refusal to be boxed in. Their connection remains one of Hollywood's more intriguing near misses. One can only imagine the explosive chemistry they might have shared on screen. His quiet stoicism playing against her electric expressiveness. Two shooting stars that came close but never collided. 3. Sharon Stone, the dangerous blonde. By the early 1990s, Clint Eastwood had successfully made the transition from movie star to respected director, earning praise for films like Bird and Unforgiven. It was during this creative high point that he met an actress on a similar trajectory, Sharon Stone, battling against the notion that she was little more than the provocative face of Basic Instinct. They crossed paths in 1995 on The Quick and the Dead. Eastwood wasn't directing, but he took a key supporting role, while Stone not only starred but also co-produced, a relative rarity at the time for female stars. This shared understanding of Hollywood power dynamics reportedly drew them together. There was definitely something there, confides a crew member. You'd see them laughing between takes, always deep in conversation. Sharon would touch his arm, comfortable, not flirtatious, but it was clear they connected. Tabloids had a field day with rumors of an affair, publishing headlines like Clint's new quick draw and Basic Instinct on set. When asked about the rumors, Stone famously smiled and said, "I admire Clint's directing style," with a teasing pause that set reporters chuckling. Eastwood, true to form, stayed silent but was uncharacteristically warm when speaking about her. "She's got good instincts," he told American Film. "She understands restraint." That word, restraint, carried weight. Coming from Eastwood, the cinema's master of understatement, it was high praise. Both were risk-takers, both willing to be disliked if it served their art. "They're cut from the same cloth," observed a director who worked with both. "Neither plays it safe. Both project danger, but in different ways." Whether their chemistry ever extended beyond friendship is known only to them. What's clear is that for a brief moment, two generations of Hollywood danger met eye to eye. 2. Raquel Welch, the ultimate sex symbol. In Hollywood's glittering sky, few stars burned brighter than Raquel Welch. From the very second she appeared in that iconic fur bikini in 1,000,000 years BC, she redefined feminine power on screen. For Clint Eastwood, then, who was simultaneously redefining masculinity himself, Welch reportedly represented the ultimate female counterpart. Clint once said Welch was the reason he took certain roles just to get on set with her, disclosed a longtime camera operator. When she walked into a room, he lost that famous Eastwood cool for a second. Both were products of the same cultural shift. He the quiet, rugged loner. She the unapologetic embodiment of independence and sensuality. Insiders say Eastwood tried to develop films with Welch throughout the 1970s. One, called Blood on the Moon, would have teamed them as unlikely allies in a revenge western. "The chemistry would have been off the charts," said a producer. But schedules and personal lives got in the way. Both were navigating tumultuous relationships, and the projects never materialized. What made Eastwood's attraction to Welch particularly interesting was how it reflected mutual recognition. Both had fought to move beyond their looks, to be taken seriously as artists. "I think Clint admired that about her," said a director. "They were both trapped in golden cages, admired, desired, but misunderstood. Though they never shared the screen, they remained forever linked as the ultimate masculine and feminine icons of their generation." 1. Faye Dunaway, When Alpha Meets Alpha. In the pantheon of Hollywood legends, few actresses combined beauty, intelligence, and ferocity quite like Faye Dunaway. From Bonnie and Clyde to Network, she radiated power both on and off screen. For Eastwood, who shared her artistic discipline and intensity, that combination was irresistible. Their first meeting at a mid-1970s dinner party hosted by director Arthur Penn has become the stuff of legend. They sat opposite each other, sparring over acting, art, and philosophy for hours. "It wasn't arguing," one guest later recalled. "It was like watching two predators circle, dangerous and electric." Someone joked about breaking them up, but Penn refused. "Are you kidding?" he said. "Clint's loving it." Their attraction was never consummated. Both were involved with others, but their intellectual connection endured. They explored several possible projects together, including a legal thriller called Deadlock, but none reached production. What makes the Eastwood-Dunaway dynamic so fascinating is that it transcended physical attraction. Each saw in the other a reflection of their own drive, perfectionism, and artistic will. "They're both uncompromising," said a cinematographer who knew them. "Put them together and you'd either get the greatest film ever made or total chaos." The women who shaped a legend. If one looks back at these 7 women from Monroe to Dunaway, one can trace the evolution not just of Clint Eastwood's tastes, but of Hollywood itself. His attractions reveal a man drawn not merely to beauty, but to strength, intellect, and authenticity.